They haven't moved in 73 cycles. High Chancellor Virel's voice echoed across the obsidian hall, calm, arrogant, like she was listing outdated trade laws, not discussing the most volatile species the galaxy had ever tolerated. There. Broken, murmured Grand Strategist Rux, crushed after their border colonies fell. You don't maintain peace by sulking. You do it by pushing back. They never did. Because they aren't peacekeepers, muttered a younger voice. They're watching. Heads turned toward Sub-Counselor Dez. He was young, newly appointed. From the Arc Spire systems, a region that still had scorch marks from early Terran contact, Viral sneered. Explain. They smiled when we took their mining worlds. They negotiated after we killed their diplomats. They offered silence when we broke treaties. So, peacekeepers tried to resolve conflict. Killers wait for the last betrayal to mean something. The room went quiet, then a chime low, shrill, encrypted intercept from a Threxian patrol on the edge of human space, unidentified vessel. Human signature. No fleet designation. No response to hails. Just a message. No voice. Just a line of raw text. We remembered everything. Viral stood. Is it a bluff? No, said Dez. It's a memory. Out in the black, aboard the Kiev, destroyer Frostlight, the crew was silent. They hadn't been fired upon. They hadn't been threatened. But the ship that emerged from dark space didn't need to say anything. It just waited. The hull was jagged. Not from damage. From intention. Carved symbols scarred across it, names, locations, years, battles no one remembered. Systems that never made the war archives. One crew member leaned forward, whispering, "Those aren't designations. They're graves." The Terran ship moved slowly. Deliberate. Its engines barely hummed, as if it wanted the galaxy to feel every meter it crossed. Then it stopped, and their lights dimmed. No contact. Just another line of code appearing across the Frostlight's main display. You taught us how to wait. Back in the council chamber, the vote was clear. Deploy surveillance fleets. Probe the edges of Terran zones. Establish pressure before fear spread. But Dez didn't vote. He just stared at the last line of the transmission, then looked up and said, "You think they didn't respond because they couldn't?" A pause. He leaned forward. They didn't respond because they weren't done remembering. At the very moment he spoke those words, 16 Outer Rim beacons failed. Not destroyed. Just overwritten. They now pulsed with an old earth tone, one not heard since the Sovereign collapse. A low rhythmic signal that looped only 3 words. One more time. And that was before Earth even responded. They thought the beacons had only just activated. They were wrong. The signal hadn't started when the Terran ship appeared. It had started decades ago, buried beneath communication bands, masked inside harmless pingbacks, mistaken for interference. Just low-grade planetary feedback. Engineers used to say. Except now, with the correct filter, it played clearly. 3 words, over and over. One more time. At Galactic Surveillance Nexus Zeta, Operator Valis stared at the waveform on his screen. It was simple, elegant, clean. No distortion. No error. Perfect repetition. He pulled the logs from the last 75 cycles. Buried deep, the signal was always there, fluctuating slightly in volume, but constant in presence. "Someone's been talking to us this whole time," he muttered. His partner leaned in. "No, not talking." "Then what?" The waveform pulsed once, and that was enough. "Warning," she whispered. The council still hadn't realized they were already inside the second phase of the human playbook. They kept scanning for ship movements, fleet buildups, heat signatures. They didn't look at the absence. That was Earth's specialty. Removal of sound. Of presence. Of doubt. Because nothing eroded empires faster than the question, What if they're already here? In the Keltrian outer belt, a convoy of 6 planetary freighters drifted off course by 3 degrees. Just 3. No one cared, until the lead ship received a transmission. Again, no voice. No video. Just a digital message burned across the navigation screen. We allowed the first hit. The ship rerouted instantly. No debate. They turned around before even filing a report, because whoever wrote that had access to their drives. To their power systems. And to their fear. Back on Earth, no one celebrated. No one stood in a war room, grinning. No flags waved, because this wasn't victory. This was timing. Deep beneath the ruins of Jakarta, a vault opened, one that hadn't seen light in 200 years. Inside was no weapon. Just a record, a list of every colony lost, every human killed, every apology never given. Not names. Coordinates. Events. We do not forget. It read at the top. We endure, and that's what they did. They endured. They adapted. And they waited. Not for the right moment to strike, but for the right lesson to teach. On the Council flagship Beacon Prime, the bridge was tense. High Chancellor Viral stood silent, arms folded, eyes locked on the lev feed of the Terran ship, now hovering at the edge of neutral space. It hadn't moved in 36 hours, hadn't responded to 107 hails, hadn't blinked. Why is it just sitting there? She asked. Tactical Officer Jorix didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, maybe it's waiting to see if we deserve what comes next. Viral turned. We offered peace. No, Jorix said. We offered comfort. Peace would have meant repair, return, respect. We offered silence and assumed they'd do the same. Varel's hands clenched. Do they want war? Maybe, Jorix said. They just want us to see ourselves. Suddenly, the feed changed. The Terran ship flickered. Not like a glitch, like a choice. And on its hull, a new phrase appeared, glowing faintly in Old Earth Latin, Sanguis impatientia. Des, now pulled into the flagship strategy room, translated. Out loud, blood in patience. A beat. Then he said it again. Blood. In patience. Not rage. Not revenge. Just delayed consequence. Across the outer systems, automated defense grids began powering down. Not by attack. By command. Somewhere in the past few cycles, Terran logic keys had inserted themselves into relay chains, quietly, elegantly, like dust sliding between cracks in the wall. No damage. No hacking. Just knowledge. They had studied the Empire's playbook. While the Empire assumed they were sulking, now they were rewriting the ending, and the galaxy was just starting to read it. On board a mining moon orbiting Lextros 4, a team of security guards received an audio file with no sender. They played it once, then sat down. Hard. Because the voice on the file, gravel, tired, Terran said only this: we were never built for peace. We just needed a reason. Then silence, and then a final line: you gave us one. Back on the Frostlight, the young comms tech who had first seen the Terran ship stepped outside the secure comms bay, eyes glassy, jaw slightly trembling. What did it say? Her officer asked. She shook her head. It didn't say anything. Then what happened? She paused. Then said, flatly, it showed me. Not myself. Not now. Later. Later, as in after. After they're done waiting. In the Council's War Archive, a single entry auto-updated. No authorization. No access request. It simply rewrote itself. The subject: Terran Psychological Strategy, new classification. Not reactive. Calculating. Emotional tolerance estimated at 1,000 year. Threshold. One final note appeared in red beneath it. We assumed they didn't strike because they were weak. We never considered they didn't strike because it wasn't time. And the line below that? It pulsed. Bright. Slow. Just 2 words. It is. The Terran ship still hadn't moved. It just hung there, like an open question with a blade hidden behind its back. For 3 full days, fleets watched it. Commanders cycled crews in shifts. Analysts measured its mass down to the micron. No power spike. No course correction, just presence. And yet, half the fleet had already rotated away, not by order, by instinct, because there's something unnatural about watching a predator that never blinks. On the bridge of the Hollow Crown, Admiral Krylos reviewed the reports. Terran vessel has made no aggressive move, his XO said, still maintaining full silence. But every hour, the signal increases. What signal? She paused. The pulse, 1 beat per hour. Barely detectable, like a countdown that never ends. Krylos leaned forward. It's psychological warfare. No, sir. It's something worse. Worse than war? The XO nodded. Patience. Elsewhere, across the Council's upper security ring, arguments turned frantic. This is paranoia, said one diplomat. We're reacting to silence. No, countered another. We're reacting to history. Des stood in the center of it all, arms folded, voice calm. They're not moving, because they don't need to. Someone scoffed. What? Are we supposed to believe they're already here? Inside our systems? Des tilted his head slightly. We should be afraid not because they're close, but because they're not coming closer. On the Imperial Archive moon, a young technician tried to delete a file. It wouldn't go. It wasn't locked. It wasn't coded. But every time he tapped erase, the screen pulsed once, then reset. The file was named retribution_log_OOAHE. Opened it. Only 3 entries. We did nothing when they begged. We blamed them when they bled. We laughed when they were silent. And beneath it, in bright red, now it's our turn to be quiet. Back on Earth, no alarms were sounding. No world governments issued warnings, because the ones who mattered were already awake. Inside the boreal depths, a facility long buried beneath Arctic frost blinked to life. A single Terran woman stood before an obsidian vault etched in forgotten dialect. She said nothing. She placed a palm against the surface. The stone hissed. The vault whispered back. Designation: Observer Reclamation Protocol engaged. And that was it. No missile. No fleet. Just confirmation. In orbit over a neutral system. A joint coalition scout group attempted a silent scan of the Terran vessel's interior. The moment the scan began, their ships locked in place. Not physically. Tactically. Engines operational. Power stable. But every autopilot system now displayed one word: still. They weren't trapped. They were being held. And then came the message: this is not war. This is the price of watching too long. Inside the council chamber, Chancellor Veral called an emergency session. Terrans have violated no treaties, fired no weapons, transmitted no demands. So why are we withdrawing? No one answered. Not immediately. Then Des stood. It's because we don't fear destruction, he said. We fear judgment. She stared, and in that long pause he added, They aren't waiting to punish us. They're waiting to see if we deserve it. Far from council space, at an abandoned comms relay on the edge of human forbidden's territory, an Empire engineer investigating a phantom. Ping found an old relay pod. Dust dash covered. Pre-collapse model. He cracked it open. Inside, a single Terran coin, one side etched with Earth's broken crescent. The other? Just 4 words. You taught us this. On the frostlight, Saren finally spoke. She hadn't said a word since seeing the Terran transmission days ago. Now, in the middle of a quiet corridor, she turned to her commander and said, I saw what they're doing. What? They're not advancing. I know. They're not surrounding us. I know. They're studying who breaks first. In the old vault beneath Earth's southern pole, a screen lit up. No keys. No input. Just a feed. One showing every Empire ship still watching the Terran vessel. It didn't list names. Just percentages. Observer morale confidence. 49% countdown to first collapse. Projected 17 hours first retaliation. Probability. 2.1% recalibration required. No. Then it faded. The next screen simply said, "We are not reacting. We are remembering." At the edge of Terran-controlled silence, a single Empire frigate Sunhook Vi broadcast. One final unauthorized message. Before vanishing off all channels, they didn't declare war. They didn't call for help. They just sighed. "We thought patience meant weakness. But now we see it was a blade. And it's been held at our throat for a very, very long time. Then nothing. No crash. No explosion. Just gone." Their last message repeated once. They didn't chase. U.S., we walked to them. The galaxy had never seen a war like this, because there was no war. No declarations. No sieges. No heroes. Just a long silence. And then the realization that everything they thought was power was just noise. The Terran ship still hadn't moved. And now no one dared ask why, because the moment you ask, you admit that it's not fear of the ship. It's fear of what it represents. Council Command finally issued a public statement. It was full of formal rhetoric. Talk of diplomacy. Respect for Terran autonomy. A commitment to avoid escalation. But no one believed it, because behind the chamber doors, the council had stopped meeting in full. Some members had left their seats vacant. Some entire species had cut coms, and a few had begun deleting every historical record of their first contact with Earth. Hoping foolishly that if they erased the memory, Earth might erase them last. On the dreadnought pillar of ascendancy, the captain wept, not from panic. Not from guilt. From certainty. The feed from the Terran vessel was active again. This time, no symbol. Just a slowly pulsing sentence across the black. White letters, one word at a time. "We do not fire first." Then a pause long enough to feel personal. Then the rest, "We just remember who made us need to." Across the rim systems, dozens of ships began turning away from Terran space. Unofficial withdrawals. Commanders pretending to be on patrol. Supply routes accidentally redirected. Because they all understood now humanity hadn't been absent. They had been taking notes. They hadn't forgotten the betrayals, the laughing diplomats, the treaties shattered by greed. The colonies burned because Terrans didn't retaliate fast enough. No. They remembered everything. And when they were ready, they didn't need to scream. They let you hear your own voice echo back. In the deep memory archive buried on Marnco's fourth moon, an ancient AI flickered awake. Not because of a Terran hack, because the presence of the Terran ship matched something in its vault. Forgotten protocol. A sentence locked behind 13 dead languages and 4 impossible equations. Do not provoke the quiet ones. Their response is not an action, it is a condition. And suddenly the archivist looking at that phrase realized something. This had happened before. Somewhere far older than the current empires. A species had underestimated the quiet. And vanished so completely. No ruins were ever found. Back on Earth. No medals were given. No parades held. There was no celebration. Because they weren't celebrating restraint. They were maintaining it. In a cold facility somewhere beneath what used to be Canada. An old man. Watch the last feed come through. His name was Elias Grant. He hadn't spoken on any channel in over 20 years. Not because he was ordered not to, but because Earth didn't need to speak anymore. Now the galaxy did the talking. And Grant? He just listened. The feed displayed dozens of ships, turning back, Some sent encoded apologies. Others offered diplomatic summit invites. One simply played back an old Earth signal, Beethoven's Seventh on loop, hoping music might soften the memory. None of them got a reply, because silence wasn't a threat. It was a mirror, and every fleet, every chancellor, every soldier who looked into that mirror now saw the same thing staring back. A killer they created, and worse, a killer who learned to wait. In the final hours of the standoff, the Terran ship finally moved. Not toward a planet, not toward a fleet, just away. As if it had seen enough. Judgment rendered, decision made, and just before it blinked into dark space, it transmitted one last line to every comrade on every military band across known space. Patience is not peace. And then it was gone. No trail. No trace. Just gone. The aftermath wasn't loud. It was quiet. Dozens of military leaders resigned quietly. Historians rewrote entries under pressure. Some species began teaching their children that Earth was not to be feared but understood. Others, they just left Earth alone. And for the first time in 1,000 cycles, humanity became something far more dangerous than a threat. They became a lesson, one the galaxy would never forget. Back at the council, Des stood alone in the empty chamber. The lights were low, the air stale. He looked at the empty seats once filled with voices who dismissed Earth, mocked them, erased them from records. Now those seats were cold. Unclaimed. Forgotten. He looked up at the central display screen, pulled up the log of the Terran message. Then whispered to himself, they never changed. We just never noticed what they were. And then, with a long breath, he added, they were never peacekeepers. They were patient killers, waiting for us to think otherwise.